Hi folks, I'm Kevin Savo, and this is my book, Thought Crime. This book isn't published, so it's only available as an audiobook. I don't have the patience for publishing, and I can't see anyone wanting to read an entire book that's written by someone whose status is debatable. Of course, a lot of people know who I am, but since I'm not some influential person, I understand that you might not rush to Amazon to purchase a book by the local rapper who made Shelton Girls, the internet gamer who talks about Sly Cooper, or the independent filmmaker whose movie isn't out yet. And that's okay. The audiobook is here for those who drive for a living, travel often, or just flat out have nothing better to do, and either way is fine with me. This is a collection of my thoughts and grievances. I'm an angry, impatient, over-analytical young man who doesn't often open up to people. Like most creative types, I have a mind that never shuts up and constant dialogue in my head, along with ideas for the next song, the next movie, the next script, and next creative endeavor that is always difficult to accomplish. In the downtime between projects, my thoughts tend to eat me alive, and my desire for excitement burdens me. This is oftentimes why creativity, depression, anxiety, and attention deficit go hand in hand. I'm never fully mentally present unless something exciting or creatively fulfilling is happening right in front of my face, and this book in a nutshell reflects the places where my mind tends to drift in those moments. Being that I'm not famous or widely known to anyone outside of the circle of people who see my work online, it'd feel pretty pretentious and out of place to walk you through my upbringing. Everyone's curious to learn about the origins of their favorite artist or a public figure who they admire, and if that person happens to be from some little town you've never heard about, you might be more interested to learn about what that place was like, but only based on the talented or admirable person it had an effect on. A lot of goofy-ass young people feel the need to represent their home turf in one way or another. I've heard Stratford referred to as Strat Town, and Harrisburg referred to as the Burg. I've heard about beef between two different territories of a town nobody gives a fuck about in the first place, like the kids that live near the woods don't fuck with the kids who live near the beach. What they don't realize is nobody who has anything remotely productive going on in their life fucks with either of them. Repping the name of your street or the name of your rural town like it's a known place, a feared place, or a respected place by anyone besides your boys who you slam beers with on fucking weekdays does not create as much of an allure as you think it does. Still, there's such a desire for one to feel like they come from some sort of interesting roots, so much so that if they don't, they feel the need to create some sort of fictitious idea of what their hometown is all about, and I don't find that necessary. I just accept it. I was born in Milford, Connecticut. In other words, nowhere, USA. You've most likely never heard of it, and with good reason. It has produced nothing worth hearing about. People from that area love the town's beaches. My favorite part of the beach was always the view of Long Island from across the Sound. It was almost like a glimpse of a more interesting and less fucking horrifically plain existence that's not all that far away. It takes an hour to reach Long Island by ferry, same distance by car if you were to drive around the water, and 8 minutes by speedboat if you were going fast enough to risk flipping the boat and killing yourself. I've always fantasized about what it might have been like to grow up in a tougher, more cultured city and state, a place that's known for producing interesting people. When I spent time in Long Island, I couldn't help but think about the magnitude of talent that came out of this place throughout history. Like, this is where Public Enemy formed. This is where LL Cool J went to high school. This is where Billy Joel discovered music. Even when I stayed in Babylon, heavy metal buffs would talk about Twisted Sister getting their start there, and Rodney Dangerfield had a bit about what Babylon was like back in the day. Some guys I knew out there had stories of famous people their parents went to school with before anybody knew they were going to be famous. If you look at the list of talented Long Island natives, you could only view the place as a breeding ground for talent. Come to think of it, New York as a whole has produced every one of my heroes. Sylvester Stallone, Billy Joel, Chuck D, Larry David, George Carlin, Biggie Smalls, Positive K, I mean, you name it. Hip-hop itself was literally born and created in New York, and while there are inspirational people from lesser-known places, a huge majority of people who we admire in entertainment hail from New York. Many came from Boston, some from Jersey, some from Philadelphia. Every major known city that surrounds my state has produced interesting people. Connecticut has only produced a select few of these people. John Mayer, Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, Robin Quivers from The Howard Stern Show, the girl from the Naked Brothers Band on Nickelodeon when we were kids is from Waterbury, and Logan Paul's podcast co-host even used to do Oxycontin with my dad at my childhood house in Milford, where he is also from. Lisa Lampanelli has a house in Fairfield, I'm assuming not far from the house where they filmed To Catch a Predator in the same town, and if you like conservative politics, Candace Owens was born in Stamford. Wow, we've really produced some fucking stars. I grew up on Billy Joel songs about Long Island and Biggie Smalls records about Brooklyn. I grew up on Rocky movies based in Philadelphia and gangster movies based in Boston. I remember staying in Long Island and hearing things like, hey, Billy Joel's speaking at the Hicksville High School today. And some people bump into him on their way to get coffee in Oyster Bay in the morning like it's an everyday thing. My buddy's father in Babylon would tell me about running into Flavor Flav and Bridget Nielsen in public. What stories did I get growing up in Connecticut? Well, Ozzy Osbourne's third guitar player sometimes stops at the local pub in Milford for a drink. Yeah, great. That's not far from the shitty pub where Al Pacino and Robert De Niro shot a scene for the movie Righteous Kill. This was back before the governor made it difficult for major Hollywood productions to be filmed here. And what was the purpose of that? As if to say, is this something interesting? Could it get people excited? Celebrities, status, movies in our little boring towns? Well, get that the fuck out of here. It sounds too interesting. And we don't do interesting. So once again, what stories do we get? My bosses at the old pizzeria I worked at told me that Quiet Riot once played Corner Pocket on the Post Road. I almost shit my pants when I heard that. Quiet Riot in Orange, Connecticut? Fuck, I've been there. I've been to Corner Pocket. I probably stood in the same place where Quiet Riot did sound check and performed. Like, is this a fucking joke? One time Will Ferrell walked through Milford Center dressed as Ron Burgundy, but I can't remember why. Then we have the Oyster Festival, which is a big deal in Milford because every year there's oysters, little activities to amuse people who are married with kids and don't get out much, and above all, like everything else in this town, it's another given excuse to drink. And this is when big-name rock and roll acts come to our little town to perform. You might see something like Bret Michaels without Poison, the guitar player from Skid Row without the rest of the band, just him. Matter of fact, not far from where the Oyster Festival is held, there's some kind of Milford music hall where members of Billy Joel's band who no longer perform with Billy Joel come and perform there. Once again, we get New York scraps. We don't have a baseball team, a football team, or a basketball team, and we lost our hockey team to a state that doesn't even give a fuck about hockey. That's because if a game brings you to another city, experiencing that city is part of embracing the spirit of the team. If the Penguins, the Pirates, or the Steelers is what brought you to Pittsburgh to see a game, you also get to experience that city. You want to grab lunch before the game, a late dinner, and drinks after the game, and there's plenty of great places to explore. Pittsburgh has a nightlife, a city life. There's even a trolley that takes you up a mountain so you can get a nice view of the place. If Connecticut still had a sports team, you'd get the pleasure of coming to see that game, and then you can even grab a drink at the very same bar where Ozzy Osbourne's third guitar player, my ex-girlfriend, and everyone my parents grew up with get shit-faced. You might even want to visit the old pub where Al Pacino and Robert De Niro filmed a scene for a movie that nobody liked. Frank Sinatra is said to have enjoyed Pepe's Pizza from New Haven, but Paul Anka prefers Domino's, and you can get that anywhere, so that's sort of a toss-up. I haven't lived in my hometown in years, and I do my best to stay the fuck out of there. It's the kind of place where you can't avoid people you know or people who know your family. Not a lot of people leave, and if they do, they come back. You'll meet a girl you like and discover, oh, you fucked 9 of my friends, and I fucked 3 of your friends. Not only that, if I remember correctly, my aunt used to fuck your uncle, and I think that makes us cousins. Connecticut radio sucks so bad, I can't believe we didn't lose our stations the same way we lost the hockey team. Actually, seeing as how we don't have sports, we shouldn't have radio either. Chaz and AJ are Connecticut's disc jockeys. They have a morning show that's so horrifically fucking boring it makes me sick. I associate listening to Chaz and AJ with every soul-crushing manual labor job I ever worked because some asshole always had to bring a radio, which he tuned to the local radio station. Connecticut classic rock, frequently interrupted by 2 fucking imbeciles with nothing to say. Anyone who finds it entertaining has to have the corniest sense of humor and the most general sense of entertainment, though I think most people also listen in the spirit of despair. Another day in Connecticut, where nothing happens, your dreams are dead, you're headed to the office to do some shit you don't like anyway. Why should the radio be any more exciting? Fuck it, I'll tune in. Some local people brag that they know or have met Chaz and AJ. Oh yeah, you met Chaz and AJ? Oh, you know Chaz and AJ. Wow, that's quite impressive. And to top it off, the guy who plays the triangle for Dave Matthews is playing the Oyster Fest next year. So now we have a whole lot of shit to talk about. One time I called into their show to win Survivor tickets. They were playing a trivia game, and nobody knows more about Survivor than me. That's the band that does Eye of the Tiger. But some other asshole won the tickets because the trivia question was something like, name a product that goes in a refrigerator. And the dude said ketchup. For a brief period of time, I engineered for another equally horrible station that's in the same building as Chaz and AJ's studio. This was Star 99, the pop station, and the disc jockeys were Anna and Big Jim, but now it's Anna and Raven. These two would get on the air and ask each other about their weekend. They'd talk about their family vacations. Anna would talk about her new exercise routine and what she did with her girlfriends the night before. They'd attempt to cover entertainment, even being as far removed from the entertainment world as they are, and I'd listen to this shit from the control room wondering how anybody finds this remotely amusing. From time to time, I'd get bored and tune into Chaz and AJ, who were live from across the hall, where a stripper was in studio taking off an article of clothing for every trivia question she got wrong. But they stop once she gets down to her bra and underwear, because that's local radio, and that's Chaz and AJ. I wanted to tell the stripper, yo, the answer's ketchup. Start with that and work your way down to relish. You can probably keep all your clothes on. This was a building where 3 Connecticut stations broadcasted from. Before that, WPLR, which is Chaz and AJ's station, used to broadcast from New Haven, but now they're right in the middle of Milford, which feels fitting. Milford's own boring fucking radio station to serve as background noise for their boring fucking lives. And if there's any Milford people listening saying, I can't believe you're saying this, you tell me what's so great about your town, this state, and what the fuck goes on around here, and tell me why we can't produce any celebrities. I live with a burning desire for things that keep life creative and interesting. The place where I live couldn't be less conducive. Some people take offense to curse words, improper terms, old-fashioned thinking, political views that conflict with theirs. I'm not concerned with any of that shit. I'm offended by boring people, boring shit, and things that are supposed to be amusing that aren't, like radio shows that aren't entertaining, and people who are so drained by this expensive, cultureless fucking wasteland that they'll listen to it. They might even put a Chaz and AJ bumper sticker on their car. Relationships are work. I'd say an actual job. Someone does the hiring, someone oversees the performance of the employee, and should the employee fail to meet requirements of the position, someone does the firing and rehiring. Someone has the upper hand, that's the employer. Someone does the chasing, that's the employee. I've heard men refer to themselves as a full-time husband and father. I've heard women say I'm a full-time wife and mother. I once worked with an old man who explained to me that you refer to your lover as your partner because you're going into business together, the business of maintaining a home and raising a family. And that's why it shouldn't really matter if you reach a point where you're no longer head over heels for each other, because together, there's still business to be conducted as business partners. The first date is the job interview, whether you realize it or not. In this case, the woman naturally takes the role of the employer because she's actually looking for a competent employee. The man usually couldn't give a fuck what kind of job this is going to be. The hours look sufficient, the pay is suitable, and should there be any overtime, he's likely to take it. In plain terms, the woman is attractive to him, he's looking forward to having sex with her, and he imagines it'll be well worth this fucking date. You can translate first date conversation into job interview questions. On a first date with a woman, she might ask something like, do you date often? Which means, do you work often? You might be asked when your last relationship was. In other words, when were you last employed, and how long have you been out of work? What was she like? Who was your former employer? And why did the relationship end? What did you do to fuck up this job? Naturally, nobody wants an employee who might try out a job, find out it's not for them, and quit 2 weeks later. You can also imagine why women aren't interested in virgins with this philosophy, because women only desire men who other women desire. It's kind of like going to a popular restaurant, because who the fuck wants to eat at the restaurant that nobody wants to go to? If nobody else likes it, why would I? Also, viewing the woman at this point as the hiring manager at a job, sleeping with a virgin would be like hiring someone with no work experience. Like if nobody else wants to give this fucking guy a job, maybe there's a reason. So if any virgins are listening, my advice to you would be to bullshit your resume. Of course, this is not a situation where you could put down one of your relatives as a reference. When you get close enough to the woman you're dating or sleeping with to discover that she's a little crazy, this is where I feel the man should take the role of the employer and begin assessing your employee's performance. Crazy girlfriends are like employees that want their benefits, their 401k, they want frequent raises, but all they do is slack off on the job and complain that this job isn't good enough. Guys who put up with daily arguments and constant complaining, who try to reason with this woman instead of breaking up with her, are very naive. In this case, she wants to take over the company. I know a lot of guys who are tortured by their controlling, angry girlfriends who seem virtually impossible to keep happy. These women continue to torture these men because they know their man won't leave. It's like having a job where there's no consequences for fucking up. And let's face it, if your employer let you do whatever the fuck you wanted and let you speak to him however you pleased, you would mouth off and goof off like there's no tomorrow. If I could tell my boss to eat a fat dick, this place fucking sucks and I'm not doing a goddamn thing at work today, and I still got to keep my job, I'd continue to take advantage. Who wouldn't? But we don't behave that way at work, even at jobs that we hate, because we know there's consequences for that kind of behavior, like being fired and left without income. When you're as considerate to a woman as you can be, and she consistently starts shit anyways, it's usually because she wants more of your time and she wants more control. She could ask for constant communication by phone or text throughout the day, and if you're busy or you work often, that might not settle so well with her. She'll always complain about some lack of attention she's getting from you. The bottom line is, you give what you can, and if what you can offer isn't enough for her, there's not much you can do. I told you, sweetie, I'm working. I told you, babe, I'm hanging with the guys tonight. Why do I always have to hang with the guys? Because they're my fucking friends. Am I supposed to give up my social life? I am supposed to give up my social life. Oh, okay, that's rational. Here's a question. Do I get to enjoy anything while I'm with you? I get to enjoy this pussy. Great. Okay, can you do anything about the smell? Okay, I can't have a social life and that's just your natural scent. Okay, well, this is a fucking nightmare. Crazy women will try to get you angry for reconfirmation that you care, and try to make you jealous for the same reason. Sometimes she'll bring up attention she gets from other men. Like, I get hit on everywhere I go, and I'm standing here fighting with your ass for more attention. If you were to tell your employer, I get job interviews everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, someone's trying to hire me, and I'm stuck at this stupid-ass job. Your employer would say, good, if all these jobs want to hire you, take your shit, get the fuck out of here, and go work for one of these companies that wants to hire you so bad. Simple as that. Your employer wouldn't say, no, we want you here at our company. We want to keep you happy. We hate it when you act out like this. We want you here at work. We don't want to lose you to another company. Likewise, crazy women forget they're adults and act out when they don't get what they want. If you acted out at work because you weren't happy with your work conditions, they'd be like, this guy's a fucking asshole, and you know what? We can find someone else to take this position. You could always find another woman and ditch the shitty employee you got at the house. After all, this is your company, your business, your program. You don't need any shenanigans going on at the office, and you have to maintain your livelihood to the best of your ability. Some people can't bring themselves to leave, and they get stuck with a shitty employee who fucks with their business and costs them money. Some people cheat and seek affection from a more sound-minded woman who doesn't expect anything from you but sex. But that's just like having two jobs. Only maybe your second job is a little more fun. In this day and age, I'm sure there's some folks who might find this sexist, so I'll acknowledge that there are plenty of men that behave the same way, and plenty of women who need to assess how they're running their business also. In life, there's always going to be people who need employment, people who are interested in your company, and not everyone's going to be right for the position. So be a better hiring manager, assess the performance of your employees, and don't let a bad employee bring down your business. I think that's a philosophy that would help a lot of people out, but what do I know? I'm just a single guy who falls asleep at night peacefully while my friends and roommates are getting screamed at by their girlfriends for not giving them enough attention. And for that, maybe I'm a sexist piece of shit who's destined to die alone. I have no one to hold me at night. I dumped all the girls who used to rub my back before and after ruining my day with their horrific bullshit. And that left kind of a void. But I do have a massage therapist and a body pillow, so I think I'll live. I am a local talent, just like the local pub, the local library, and the local hoe from the neighborhood. It's a title that holds no merit, yet so many rep that title like it's something to be proud of. Local people don't listen to local artists, and that really pisses off people who rep themselves as local artists, especially local rappers. 'Cause what's the point of being a local anything if other locals don't rally behind you? Nobody in their right mind strives to be a local artist in the first place. You're only a local artist if you can't obtain enough exposure to become a national artist. So if you've been a local artist for 20 years, that means you failed at achieving any kind of real notoriety. I've been able to achieve a little success in my area by doing away with this local support guilt trip. And when I say I've had some success, I mean I simply served my own purpose. I made songs and videos with the intention of entertaining the town and had those videos get shared all around town. This, of course, ends up being a mixture of people who got a kick out of it and people who think I'm a clown and share it to make fun of me. It doesn't mean I'm greatly admired or have grown a fan base. It just means I served my own purpose. I created a product for people to see or hear, and it got around to a couple thousand people that got some entertainment value out of it. Artists who make material that nobody hears and continue on to produce more material that also doesn't get heard aren't even serving the purpose of that content, which is to be heard, which is to be seen. At least by somebody. I make material to be heard and I get it heard. Whether people like it or not is out of my hands. At least I'm a local guy who entertains local people, so in a way, I live up to this title that I disregard. But it's better than being labeled the local guy simply because I can't branch out past the local area. People consider local artists wannabes. They assume off the bat that you must feel in your own delusional mind that you're already famous. Truthfully, I'm not on a mission to become an A-list celebrity. I'm just an entertainer who aims to entertain. When I put on a show, my aim was always to get everyone we know together for a fun night. Come out and dance with us on stage. Come out and turn up with everybody we know. My music was always a side effect of that event. It was never, hey, come out and be my audience member. If people dug the music, that was a bonus. When I played big crowds of hundreds and thousands, the goal was similar. I can rhyme my ass off, but the crowd might not be able to make out a word I'm saying over a faulty PA system. Once again, I'd gladly let my music and lyrics take a back seat in order to make sure this crowd gets hyped, energized, and engaged in the event, and I became more of a hype man during those performances than anything else. I knew the crowd came out for the headliner, I knew they didn't know or care to hear my music, and that's okay. I'm an entertainer and a crowd conductor. Let's make sure these people get what they paid for, a fun time.
Yo, pal, no place for this like that. One more time, make some noise if you're having fun tonight, Milford. Come on. Can you guys scream so loud that everybody in fucking Devon knows that Derek and the Funbacks is playing Crush tonight? What do you think? And y'all scream so loud that everybody in Stratford knows Derek and the Funbacks are playing Crush tonight. Are we with it?
Showing after the show and join with me. Make some noise one last time if you're fucking hands up. Thank you.
The worst thing you can do is demand that people support local talent. This is a trap a lot of struggling artists fall into, and I don't think they realize how insane it is. You're going to guilt people into supporting you because you're a local artist, and that's, like, what, the moral thing to do? Supporting someone is an obligation. I support my dad in his sobriety by joining him at AA meetings once in a blue. I've gone with my friend to visit his mother's grave to show my support and give him some strength. When Public Enemy drops an album, I buy it because I'm looking forward to hearing their new songs. When Def Leppard comes to town, I attend the concert because I love seeing them live. You see the difference? If I ask you to come out to a show and support me, it's like asking for a favor. I'm implying off the bat that I know this is not something you'll really enjoy, but would you please just do it for me? So local rappers are continuously obligating people to listen to their music and come out to their showcases instead of working on producing music or putting on shows that might organically grab the interest of local people. They market themselves like a fucking fruit stand. Why get your fruit from corporate grocery stores when you can shop local? Support the local farmers and local businesses. Local artists encourage us to support each other also. This results in a showcase with 10 performers, and your only audience is the other artists waiting to perform. So we're all just performing for each other instead of being exposed to people who never heard us. There's a code among performers that suggests giving respect to another artist you share the same bill with. So local guys get super pissed if you leave right after your set instead of sticking around to watch their set. Now, if there was already an audience there who wanted to hear their set, this wouldn't be so crucial. But there isn't, so if you don't stick around to watch them, nobody will. It's bad enough you just did a set nobody cares about because you're a local guy doing originals, but now you have to stick around and watch another local guy do songs you don't know. Once again, not because it's enjoyable, but because you've been obligated. It's a different story with local cover bands. For one, they're actual musicians, so there's more of a respect factor. Secondly, rap is so associated with cars, bitches, money, and mansions that if you don't have any of those things, people naturally see you as failing to obtain an actual rap status. And thirdly, cover bands perform songs people know. All anyone really wants out of local acts is to hear songs they're familiar with to suit their evening. So like Rocky Balboa says, they're the neighborhood jukebox. Derek and the Funbags is a local cover band that's so popular they literally draw a crowd that barely fits in whichever venue they perform at. In 2018, I opened for them at Crush in Milford. Whatever max capacity is according to the fire marshal, it was far exceeded that night. There was no room to walk. The place was packed from the stage to the back wall. After my set, I left with a girl who came out to the show, and my uncle called me on the way home to lecture me about the performer's code. The band was gracious enough to let you open for them. Instead of heading home to get laid, you should stick around and support the band during their set. Here we go again. While I was thankful to be on the bill that night, especially performing in a town that notoriously rejects hip-hop and still making it work in what made for a great set with a lot of crowd engagement, the venue was so packed the band wouldn't even notice if I stuck around to watch their set, and they don't need my support. They don't need anyone's support. Nobody supports Derek and the Funbags. People love Derek and the Funbags. So I disobeyed my uncle, and I disobeyed the performer's code of obligation. Then again, when I got that girl home, we got so fucked up that I couldn't maintain an erection. I was 21 years old at the time, and I never knew that could happen from getting too fucked up. She was so insanely gorgeous that this evening kind of traumatized me, so much so that I stopped getting fucked up after this. I'd never get a shot with this girl again, because she thinks I have erectile dysfunction at 21. I told her this had never happened to me before, but I realized that's probably what every guy with erectile dysfunction says, every time it happens. Maybe this was my karma for disobeying the local performer's code, and if that's what can happen when you don't respect the code, then maybe I should have listened to all the local amateur performers all along. So support local up-and-coming artists. It's your obligation, and it's the moral thing to do. How many people do you know who are in a toxic relationship? How many toxic relationships have you been in? Why do we subconsciously seek toxic people? When we find ourselves in a toxic situation, why do we tend to put up with it for as long as we normally do instead of jumping ship immediately? Because toxicity is enticing, it's exciting, and it's sexy. But above all, most of us come from fucked up families, and based on what a lot of us witnessed our parents go through, a toxic partner subconsciously makes us feel right at home. I believe a woman can set a strong example for a young man and influence the kind of woman he might seek in his adulthood. My mother is a creative, heartfelt, hard-working individual, but she folds under pressure like nothing. The lightest bit of stress can instantly bring out a batshit crazy outburst, and that's part of my learned behavior. My aunt is a tough cookie. She's beautiful and beautifully hot-headed, masculine as all fuck, and doesn't take any shit. She constantly challenges my uncle when she feels she needs to, and I think this seeped into my subconscious as part of what a normal relationship looks like also. My uncle is a tough, hard-headed alpha male, whose partner is a hot, equally hard-headed, and equally tough chick. If I ever found a woman like my aunt, that would mean I've achieved the alpha male status of my uncle. My grandmother would give you the shirt off her back, literally, but she's bipolar and has enough energy for starting shit as a shit-starting Energizer bunny. Naturally, she's been a challenge for every man she's ever had, and a merciless one at that. In a fucked up way, it's part of what kept her young and vibrant. My grandfather, who divorced her, remarried my step-grandmother, who's a wonderful person, but suffers from various mental health issues and also has a bit of a temper herself. I have another aunt whose drug addiction consumed her life, and I kind of hold some resentments for the effects that had on my cousin. This isn't to denigrate women or the women in my family, but simply to reflect that I never witnessed an ordinary partnership. I didn't grow up around people in happy relationships. This blame could certainly fall on behalf of the Savo men as well, but they're not what subconsciously affected the women I'd choose in my adulthood. Because I was raised around tough, hard-headed, sometimes wild, and often angry women who constantly challenged their men, when I came to find a woman like this, I'm aware it's not healthy, I'm aware it's a challenge, and I'm aware I should look elsewhere for an easier-going woman, but it seems to fit the bill for a Savo man. It's sexy, it's exciting, and stimulates the part of my brain that has an affection for chaos. It's normal to me, as normal as every relationship I've ever witnessed. This is my own beautifully flawed, always angry, and usually challenging crazy bitch, and I love her as much as I love the women in my family. It also just so happens that the easygoing girl never excites me the same way as the wild card, such as women know the easygoing nice guy could never be as exciting as the bad boy. As much as women have daddy issues, men have mommy issues, but we never talk about that. I have 3 friends who unfortunately lost their mothers at a young age, and it's no surprise that they feel they need a woman and can't get by without a female partner in their life, and cling to a woman as soon as they find her. Psychologically, they're looking for a mother figure, just as a woman who didn't have a father searches for the same in her partner without realizing it. In the case of my friends who lost their moms, they could find the most toxic woman possible, but struggle to let her go, even if they find their situation is unhealthy, because they already lost the first woman in their life. They're not going to lose the second. Your woman may cook for you like your mother would. Your woman may clean like your mother did. She might care for you when you're sick like your mother did. She may encourage you to better yourself like your mother would. However, if this is a toxic woman, the male who's lost his mother is likely to psychologically confuse this woman's toxicity for love, because your mother might also scream and bitch and blow up at you on a daily basis, but when it's your mom, you know it's out of love and concern. The reason we talk about toxic masculinity and not toxic femininity is because we reject the notion that a woman can be as abusive as a man, because most of us are not physically intimidated by our girlfriends. In other words, there's always a chance that a toxic man will eventually graduate from verbal abuse and mental manipulation to beating your ass. And the fact is, a toxic woman may eventually do the same, but the majority of us are not afraid of our girlfriends beating us up. Nobody wants to deal with a woman getting physical, but generally none of us are afraid of it happening either. So as a result, we really only acknowledge men as having the capability of destroying a woman, but we don't often talk about the same ability a woman has to destroy a good man. The truth is, toxic people can be either male or female, but since women are naturally more emotional, we often mistake toxic traits in a woman for typical female behavior. Like, girls bug out, girls get insecure, girls get overly emotional, she's just being a girl. When in many cases, you apply those same traits to a male, and we have no issue considering that a toxic, abusive, controlling man, the kind that women fear and rather not become involved with. The issue with that is men become unclear of how to distinguish typical female behavior from toxic behavior, and toxic women never have to take accountability for being toxic and never feel pressured to change because they aren't as shamed for it. Toxic women hide behind the same excuses for their behavior as toxic men do. I only act this way because I feel insecure. I don't get enough reassurance. I don't feel you value me enough. I don't feel you give me enough attention. I'm afraid you'll cheat. I'm afraid you'll leave. I'm afraid you won't love me. And that's why I act like a fucking nutcase. But most abusive men torture their girlfriends for the same exact reasons and justify it the same way. Again, a sexist bit by today's standards, but it's really just to say fucked up behavior has no associated gender, race, or sexual orientation. Anyone can act like a fucking nut. Women just have a bit of an advantage of not being judged so harshly for it in many cases. I can't help but feel like we also began to romanticize toxicity in the movies long ago. The allure and attraction associated with a toxic person always brings me back to Dracula. You could think Bela Lugosi, but I more associate this theme with Christopher Lee, maybe because he's handsomer and there were sexier women in those movies. When women fell helpless to Dracula's spell, it always served for an intimate sort of moment, as if she was drawn and attracted to him, as if some sort of romance or sex was about to take place, but he was only luring the woman in to suck her blood and turn her into the blood-sucking undead like himself. Dracula also possesses every trait of an alpha male who women would naturally desire. He has status, as people who don't know he's a vampire respect him as a wealthy, high-value individual. There's a mystery factor that intrigues women to learn more about who this guy actually is. There's an exciting sense of danger associated with getting close to him. There was a desired sense of confident masculinity with the way he carried himself, and you could associate his evil hypnotic powers with the ability of a man who knows how to seduce a woman. The Wolfman, on the other hand, reflects the classic female desire to fix a broken man and help him sort out his demons. Anytime I've ever told a woman that I'm not right in the head, I'm emotionally damaged, or I'm too fucked up for a relationship, she naturally replied, I can help you. I can fix that, or at least let me try. I've come to learn that if a woman tells me she's too fucked up for a relationship, that I should probably take her word for it. She just said she's fucked up. Attempting to fix her would involve unraveling emotional trauma from her past and would ultimately just make me angry at her parents. Like, how bad did you people fuck up exactly? All this girl wanted was love, and I can't compensate for the love you fucking idiots didn't give her in her formative years. Larry Talbot explains to his lover that she's in grave danger if she stays close to him because he becomes a werewolf when the full moon is out and he could kill her when that happens. And she literally does not give a fuck at all. She still just wants to help somehow. So lesson learned from our parents, our family, and from the classic movies. Toxic relationships are an unfortunate norm, and love is a horror movie. That's why I'm not a fan of romantic comedies, because that's the real fantasy. I used to suffer from a great deal of performance anxiety, the fear of not being able to impress in the bedroom, and self-doubt that prevents you from being as relaxed and in tune with your partner as you should be. The fact that we use the word performance in relation to sex is what gave me performance anxiety in the first place, because I'm a performer, so the idea of a sexual performance was no different to me than a stage performance. When the lights go out and the clothes come off, the spotlight is on me, and I'm not trying to have a bad set. Jordan Peterson says if you're intimidated by women, it's because you view them as a judgmental ideal. And that's true because before I outgrew this mentality, I hardly ever thought about whether or not the woman I was sleeping with impressed me. I was too concerned with impressing her. I viewed myself as the only one who could fuck up or fail to meet expectations, so I didn't have any expectations of my own. That didn't come until later, after dating and sleeping with many women. When I was younger, my friends and I hung around with a lot of promiscuous girls. Hearing the way they'd openly discuss their sex life didn't help my performance anxiety either. It lended to it. A lot of these girls had slept with my friends and slept with guys who we knew from the neighborhood. First and last names got dropped and sexual performance was criticized in detail. When we hung with our female friends, they would go on and on about all the guys who we knew who failed to satisfy them, which was horrific to listen to because now I know which of my friends apparently can't fuck, and that's not even any of my business. But it also gave me some insight as to how openly girls discuss this shit. My understanding now was that if I slept with a girl from the neighborhood, my name is eventually going to be dropped in conversation the same way, along with a review of how well I performed, which was fucked up because whenever I got a girl in bed, what we were doing was private, but I viewed it as something people were going to hear about and talk about. So in attempting to satisfy this woman, I'm really trying to do a couple of things at once. To see to it that she enjoys the sex enough to want to sleep with me again, protect my reputation when I'm talked about if this gets brought up in conversation, and upstage the guys who were getting bad reviews. A lot of girls enjoy making men nervous and aim to intimidate. Of course, this is usually also a test to see if they can throw him off as a way of checking his masculinity. Like, if I say a bunch of crazy shit, will it make him nervous or will it bounce right off him? But on the flip side of that, a lot of girls who turned out to be average in bed would talk a tough game in the beginning and claim to be wild in bed. The amount of times a girl has said something like, "I'm crazy, I'm wild, you can't even handle me," is an instant eye roller, because most of the girls who said all that crazy shit never did anything crazy in the bedroom. But as a younger guy, I'd fall for this routine every time. I didn't have a great talent for shifting through bullshit back then and had a weird habit of trusting what people said. This is also because I wasn't that sexually experienced. The amount of shit girls would talk about how crazy they were in bed made it feel less like a performance now and more like a sport event. Girls who talked like this, even though they wanted to sleep with me, were making me think of them more as my opponent. Like, you can talk a tough game, but I'm going to be the humble athlete who talks less shit and keeps his head in the game in order to come out on top. I understand that when a young woman discovers her intimidation factor, it must be one hell of an ego trip to know that when a guy likes you or wants to sleep with you, he's also a little nervous. We're talking about teenagers and young adults in this instance, and I don't expect girls to not want to have their fun and enjoy being the hot, sought-after chick that guys want to impress, but the shit talk was excessive. Here's a girl who's shown her interest, she wants to sleep with me, but she's running her mouth like a fighter does when they're talking about their opponent before a fight. "I'm crazy in bed, you can't handle me, I'll ruin your life, I'll rock your world, I'll chew you up and spit you out." Like, what are you, Clubber Lang? She might as well say, "Nah, I don't hate Savo, but I pity the fool." Girls like to toy with guys, and before I really understood that, I would tend to believe every word of this nonsense. When girls would say they're crazy in bed and I can't handle them, I used to wonder what the hell they planned on doing in the bedroom that was so out of this world and crazy. Like, what am I up against exactly? Is my bed about to become like a wrestling ring, and is she coming down off the top rope like Rey Mysterio? What the fuck is about to happen? Well, either way, the date is set, she's coming by the house this weekend, shit talk is ongoing, and the anticipation and anxiety is in full swing. It feels like a press conference before a boxing match.
Hey, Savo.
Hey, what's good with you? Good to meet you.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
I'm good.
Yeah, hey, so we heard a lot from your opponent tonight, but we didn't hear as much from you about how you're feeling going into the event this weekend.
Well, she's definitely a heavyweight in this division. There's no doubt about that. She slept with a lot of guys on this side of town, so she definitely has experience on me. But, I'm very focused right now. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I might be a rookie compared to some of the guys she's been with, but I just want to go the distance.
All right, well, good luck this weekend. We're all looking forward to this match.
Well, here we are, the night of the big event. We're all hanging out at the house, having a few drinks with the guys, and she calls me into the bedroom. After all the shit talk leading up to this moment, I'm nervous, but ready. This is what we prepared for. I tell her to head into the bedroom and get undressed while I take a moment to get my head in the game, as the performance anxiety takes over and the sports commentators begin talking in my head.
And now, moments away from stepping into the bedroom, Savo, Huevo, Savo. Coming in at an average 25 sexual partners, 5'7", 175 pounds. Savo's last performance coming in at just under the 8-minute mark. We can all assume he's hoping to last a little longer in tonight's match.
Thanks, Jim. Just take a look at this guy's records. 25 women, but only maybe a fraction of these women were really sexually satisfied. I'm sure Savo's looking to even out those odds a bit during tonight's performance.
Yeah, but when you look at Savo's opponent, it's hard to imagine he's going to last much longer than the first round. Double D titties, big booty, thin waist. Let's be honest, the odds are stacked against him.
Yeah, but this is a guy with a lot of heart and a fairly decent stroke game. The question is, can he pace himself and not unload everything he's got in the first round? Because in order to come out on top tonight, he's going to have to go to the body and maintain his composure.
This is obviously ridiculous, and nobody should put this kind of pressure on themselves. But this is what being a kid is all about. Stupid shit. I also came to realize that criticism is good. It only takes embarrassing yourself with a few girls to realize what you're doing wrong, and the humiliation makes you determined to improve. So it makes you a better lover. Girls love to jab at a man's ego when they have the opportunity, and it's shitty, but on the flip side of that, I've slept with a lot of girls that are terrible at sex, and I realize that's because they never had to deal with the same concerns. As young men, we're so nervous about impressing the girl we like that once we get all that anxiety and bullshit out of the way, we don't give much thought to the woman's performance. Because once again, she's the judgmental ideal, and we're the subjects being judged by the almighty attractive female. When I sleep with a girl who doesn't really seem to know what she's doing, I think to myself, you never got good at sex because nobody ever clowned you for being bad at sex. No one ever said, that doesn't feel good, or why are you doing that, or that hurts, or your rhythm's off. So you never learned any differently. As much as it sucks to be clowned by a girl, have her tell the whole neighborhood you can't fuck, or aim to intimidate you when you should be sharing a mutually intimate experience, it builds character and it builds skill. I once told a girl she couldn't kiss. I didn't phrase it like that. I said it in the most delicate way possible. I told her to follow my lead, and I showed her how to kiss. I wasn't trying to be an asshole. I was attracted to her, and I wanted to enjoy kissing her, so I addressed it. This was apparently a tremendous blow to her ego, and she went on about how nobody ever told her she was bad at kissing. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you're a horrible kisser. The first time I ever French kissed a girl, I was so bad at it, she backed away from my lips and fucking dumped me right then and there. Then she told all the girls in school I'm a horrible kisser. That was a slightly traumatic experience, but as a result of that embarrassment, now I'm a decent kisser. As decent as I can be with these white boy lips. I put so much pressure on myself to impress women when I was younger that I became exhausted from it, and now I simply don't care. If you're impressed, stick around. If you're not, find a guy who impresses you. I no longer aim to upstage other men or be this mind-blowing lover. Not to be sappy, but I found the best sex to be with someone you actually like anyways, even better if she really likes you. Casual sex has its place, but it's always a roll of the dice and can sometimes be more trouble than it's worth. My new philosophy, the bedroom is for loving. Save the performance for the stage. Besides, it's not like she paid a ticket price anyways. I've about had it with non-smokers. Not the people who simply never chose to smoke and also possess the unique ability to mind their own fucking business, but the ones that constantly feel the need to pester you about your smoking habit and urge you to quit. Now, to be clear, smoking is obviously a danger to your health, and if you light up cigarettes indoors with all the windows shut right next to a non-smoker who's bothered by the smell, you are an asshole, and you are being inconsiderate. But in general, I find non-smokers who feel the need to speak on the smoking habit of others to be very disingenuous. Isn't this really just another moral high ground to stand on? We live in a selfish society where most people are only greatly concerned with their own personal benefit. People only care about themselves, their life, their money, their health, their home, their marriage, their kids. I'm supposed to honestly believe that dramatically changes once I light up a cigarette and now you're concerned about my health? No, you're patting yourself on the back because you never picked up a habit that's widely demonized and judging me because I did. It's also odd to me that this concern isn't applied to other equally negative lifestyle habits. Nobody comments on how you should give up sugar, how you should give up fast food, how you should give up alcohol, but smoking is where we draw a line for some reason. Which is odd because nobody drops dead from one cigarette. A cigarette addiction is a slow killer. In the same way, eating fast food throughout your life is slowly killing you. Eating too much sugar is slowly moving you towards diabetes. Alcohol actually could kill you overnight, whether you get alcohol poisoning or drive drunk into a fucking pole. So I'm not defending smoking, but rather just asking why we openly accept habits that destroy your stomach, weaken your heart, raise your blood pressure, and alter your brain, but draw a line once you start fucking with your lungs. I think it's because smoking is edgy. To non-smokers, it must represent living on the edge, knowingly gambling with your health, and the ultimate I don't give a fuck attitude. If you smoke, you may be thought of as an individual that flirts with danger, or maybe more dramatically flirts with death, being that cigarettes do kill, even though it takes time. The demonization of smoking increased like a motherfucker when they banned it in bars and restaurants. Don't forget, smoking used to be acceptable anywhere. Planes, hospitals, there even used to be smoking rooms in high schools. Before cigarette smoking was associated with punks who have tattoos and wear their baseball caps backwards, we associated it with the classic man, clean cut, dressed well, with a top hat and a cigarette. If we want to be stereotypical, which any judgmental person is, let's paint that picture by saying today you'd associate cigarette smoking with someone who looks like Tommy Lee. But back in the day, we'd associate cigarette smoking with someone who looks like Frank Sinatra. Everyone smoked in the classic movies. I watch old taped vampire specials with commercial breaks between the scary movies that advertise Camels back when you could still advertise cigarettes on television. And back then, they said Camels was the cigarette brand trusted by doctors. Nothing makes me crave a cigarette more than an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I'm envious of any old movie scene where characters lit up indoors without some middle-aged white mom complaining to someone about it. What a world that must have been. Everyone openly destroying their health and setting themselves up for an early death, but with much less bitching and whining in the interim. I've been a cigar smoker since I was 15. I started smoking cigarettes at 18, and at 22 I kicked my cigarette habit with the use of a vape, which was said to be the safe alternative to cigarettes, and even that was a challenging transition. When vapes were invented, non-smokers sat back temporarily before opening fire on people who vape, almost as if to say, okay, this seems like something equally worth demonizing. It's another new habit I can praise myself for not picking up. If only there's a study that can prove it's just as bad as cigarettes. Sit tight, one's gotta be coming. And for about a year and a half, us smokers who finally gave up cigarettes by switching to vaping had some peace of mind. I still get to smoke, but instead of inhaling 1,000 chemicals, I'm inhaling around 3. And instead of inhaling smoke, I'm inhaling water vapor, which is probably the same thing that happens in a steamy shower or when I walk through the fog. Hell, doctors approve the use of a nebulizer as a delivery method for medicine to treat the lungs, even for young children, and that's essentially inhaling medicine through water vapor. Then the first study that sort of hints at the fact that vaping may not be as great for you as we thought hit the scene, and non-smokers resumed their horse shit immediately. Now a water vapor addiction means you ain't shit either, and you should make better choices in life. While all this was going on, acceptance of marijuana was on the rise like a motherfucker. Whether true or not, we all came to accept this notion that marijuana doesn't harm the lungs like tobacco, and when we learned that legalizing it could be good for the economy, it became accepted politically, depending on your party and views. Bernie Sanders goes on television suggesting that we legalize weed. Now politics is becoming increasingly less boring. Can you see where my issue is? I don't want to be hung up on a nicotine addiction my entire life. Smoking is horrible for you, and it's a habit you should have never picked up. But the demonization of smoking is such horseshit. It's just another reason to raise your hand from the crowd and say, I'm responsible, I'm sensible, I'm on the side of righteousness, and I'm health conscious. But only because demonizing cigarettes is the theme of our era, just like acceptance of marijuana is the theme of our era, and acceptance of cigarettes was the theme of our grandparents' era. It's all about what they tell us to believe. They hand us morals. When the culture said smoking was acceptable everywhere, we accepted it without questioning it. When the culture said no, never mind, smoking is now bad, people rose up and started terrorizing smokers. Like, didn't you hear? Smoking is bad. Did you know it was bad? Well, if you knew it was bad, why'd you start doing it? Did you vote? Have you done your part to protect the environment today? Are there other activities you take part in that the media has influenced me to criticize you for? Oh, you do? Well, now I'm upset about a lot of things. Times change and people move with the times, constantly swapping back and forth what they'll demonize and what they'll accept. We went from reefer madness to nerds who never smoked a joint in their life embracing the favorable numbers coming out of Colorado once they legalized weed. And what in the fuck makes you think weed smoke belongs in the lungs any more than tobacco? The culture, the media, the politicians, Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, and the rising cannabis industry. That's it. The culture accepts one thing, demonizes another, and we follow suit. Now, I'm certainly not going to demonize marijuana, but I believe this story in particular got spun like a motherfucker. The basic consensus always seemed to be that an occasional joint isn't going to kill you, and stoners ran with that concept, turning it from an occasional joint won't kill you to weed smoke doesn't harm the lungs in any capacity and you can smoke 8 blunts to the face a day without turning your lungs black. Alcoholics did the same thing when doctors said an occasional glass of red wine is good for the heart. They spun that story into, you can drink red wine all the time. Now remember, I don't demonize anything but rape, genocide, and overall cruelty. I am for absolute autonomy, the right to do whatever the living fuck you please, so long as it doesn't harm others. I'm pro-cigarette, pro-weed, pro-vape, pro-steroid, I'm even pro-choice and pro-life at the same time, depending on who I'm talking to, in the spirit of minding my own fucking business. But if we want to make a big stink about what does or does not harm the lungs, I'd think we're discussing the notion of whether or not anything besides oxygen belongs in the lungs in the first place, so even weed smoke doesn't fit into that equation for me. For one, most pot smokers roll weed in blunt wraps or cigar wraps, which once burned creates heavy-duty smoke. As a cigar smoker, we know smoke from these leaves would be twice as harmful to the lungs as cigarettes if inhaled, as cigars are designed only to be puffed and maybe retrohaled slightly through the nostrils, but not inhaled. Even joint papers is burning paper, so unless you smoke weed right out of a bowl, you're still inhaling fumes from burning paper or burning cigar wrappers. You also get nicotine from the blunt wrap, which is why smokers usually prefer a blunt to a bowl. You're sort of unknowingly developing a little nicotine addiction to go with your pot smoking habit. Still, the culture says this is okay at the moment, so we say it's okay. But once again, how concerned do you think people really are about the habits of others that don't even affect them? And how many issues are we only discussing in the first place because the culture and the media handed us another subject to debate and come to disagreements on? The way I figure it, if my cigarette smoke, vape smoke, cigar smoke, weed smoke, hookah smoke, or pipe smoke isn't coming anywhere near you, mind your own business and enjoy your oxygen. I also feel like we as a culture should demonize everything that's bad for us, or demonize nothing at all. If we're not going to demonize fast food, sugar, alcohol, and everything that slowly causes obesity, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, that means even if demonizing smoking worked and people quit smoking due to demonization, we still have a plethora of other health-related issues to tackle. I don't quite understand how someone missing a foot from diabetes caused by sugar is somehow viewed as less severe than someone missing a lung from complications related to smoking. If the government really gave a fuck about our health and life expectancy, alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, processed food, and everything that slowly kills us would be outlawed. With the vegan movement, more people are demonizing meat, but less people are demonizing candy, and candy will never be demonized because it's just too goddamn classic. Imagine telling a little kid he can't have a chocolate bar. That's like taking his childhood away. But the fact is, that's the start of building a physical dependency on sugar that could last for life. And I'll give you a little experiment you can try at home if you think sugar consumption isn't a big deal. Take sugar completely out of your diet for 2 days, if you consume a lot of sugar, and watch how sick you get. You're withdrawing from sugar. Then you'll understand how I feel when I try to quit smoking when my body withdraws from nicotine. When generalizing or stereotyping a group of people instead of judging people on a fair and individual basis, you do often find common themes. We're told not to stereotype, but it isn't always wrong, and it isn't always negative either. I know a lot of talented black athletes, I know a lot of highly academic Asians, I know a lot of neat and stylish gay people, and I know a lot of irritating, annoying, self-righteous, nosy, easily startled, easily triggered, nerdy, boring, judgmental, and usually complaining white people. And to be fair, what is white? I'm white because I'm not black, but I stem from dark people. I'm Italian and Puerto Rican. Then I have the whiter side of my family, which is Irish and Polish. It's kind of odd to identify with white as your race and not just a term that refers to your complexion, because a white person could be any number of nationalities. When I generalize white people, I'm personally talking about the whitest of the whites. Let's say American-born Irish, Polish, German, or English, and stay in that ballpark. But in this respect, I mainly use white as a slang term, an expression of certain ideals. White is an attitude. It's a spirit of feeling and thinking you're better than others. Locking your car door in neighborhoods you're unfamiliar with, writing a letter to the radio station to address a commercial that offended you, often asking for the manager at a restaurant, often asking to speak to the supervisor in a retail store, calling the police when the neighbors are playing their music a little too loud at 7:30 at night on a Saturday, always doing what the government tells you, always doing what the news tells you, always fearing what the media tells you to fear, and always criticizing others for not doing the same. I think a majority of my contempt for white people comes from my rebellious nature. I'm not overly pro-government, I don't trust politicians, I don't believe everything I read, and I don't easily comply with arbitrary regulations that the system imposes on us unless it makes sense to me. White people seem to be the most compliant with the system because white people are overly concerned with safety and security. Tell white people there's a threat to their safety, and they'll hand over whichever personal freedom necessary in exchange for the illusion of guaranteed security in return. At the moment, I drive for Amazon and deliver packages to rich white neighborhoods. I can't even count the amount of times my presence in the neighborhood has stirred up a little concern. I've been stopped by residents and asked what I'm up to. I've been asked if I'm lost, and I've been asked what address I'm looking for, which is like a test to see if I belong around these parts. I'm the fucking Amazon delivery guy. What about this concerns you? Do you think I'm an undercover home intruder who went to the trouble of renting an Amazon company vehicle to scout out the neighborhood for my next home invasion? It's like naturally they can sense I'm not one of them. I'm white, but I'm not one of those good, clean, wholesome whites with equally useless fears and concerns about routine shit that isn't even concerning. Like getting a package delivered to your house, which, by the way, I wouldn't even be delivering if you didn't order it, but now I'm here and you're frightened for some reason. Before I worked for Amazon, I was a security guard. One night they gave me a temporary post in a rich white neighborhood that was under some sort of construction, and while the residents were unable to park their cars in their usual parking spots, it was my job to look after them and make sure there weren't any break-ins. And even this was alarming to the resident whites. I must have been approached by 5 people or so who were alarmed to see a security guard. Oh, we don't usually have security guards in this neighborhood. Oh yeah? Well, it's security, something you people are usually obsessed with. Should I let a tweaker with a fucking ski mask hold my post so I can go the fuck home? Why in the hell would a security presence in your neighborhood be alarming? People were so suspicious, and one couple even approached me and flat out ordered me to leave, like they had the authority to do that. Well, they may not be the police, but they are good, wholesome white folks, which is practically the same thing. White neighbors are the worst. I'm thankful that on my street, there's 2 Asian families, 4 black families, and 2 Hispanic families. But nevertheless, the whites are still among us. White neighbors are full of noise complaints. I don't know if these people have been listening to music with the volume on low their entire life, but boy do they have a low tolerance for music. I'm sure if I was bumping Mozart, this would be a different story. But I like rap music, which stereotypical whites hate. Then again, let's not forget that stereotypical white parents of a generation ago were easily frightened by rock and roll. Remember, before rap was the more concerning influence on the youth, white parents were up in arms about Black Sabbath, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue. This was the devil's music. A shredding electric guitar was as frightening back then as a sampled beat and some record scratching is to them today. I've had one of my white neighbors scold me about playing music in my car with all the windows rolled up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, would you turn that down? Okay, first of all, Mr. Cunningham, you live 4 houses away from me. And second of all, it's the middle of the fucking day. So if I can't play music at this time in my car with the windows rolled up, I don't stand a chance in hell at playing a little music in the evening on a weekend, now do I? That's a phone call to the cops. And man, do white people love calling the cops. I think other races are under the misconception that white folks all stick together. We don't. A fellow white will turn on us in a heartbeat. All we gotta do is bring out a fucking boombox, and they're calling the ops. What irks me about this is I'm not without respect for the people I live around. I don't blast music out of a subwoofer and turn the neighborhood street into a fucking concert venue. I don't think the music was even really disrupting another resident more than half the times we've had the cops called on us for noise complaints. White neighbors just need to be able to hear it. If they can make out a noise and pinpoint where it's coming from, even if their television's louder than the music coming from my house, they're calling. Like, hand me the phone. Have you ever noticed that when a black guy sleeps with multiple women, he's thought of as a suave player, but when a white guy sleeps with multiple women, he's thought of as an ignorant fuckboy? That's because the black guy's more likely to be low-key about what he does with women, keep his mouth shut, and go about his business. The white guy's gonna brag to his friends, tell the whole town, slam a couple beers with his buddies, and start running his mouth like, dude, you know Jennifer? I totally boned her. Then I got head from her best friend on my dirt bike. How many beers you think I can chug in under 5 minutes and ruin this entire social event? Only a white kid could be labeled with a term as goofy as fuckboy. But in fairness, the name says it all. He does fuck a lot of girls, but he goes about it in a goofy fucking way. Naturally, Kyle and his college buddies who play beer pong and bone chicks have not received their memberships to the Players Club, though they might be members of a golf club. A black man's masculine frame is never questioned. Shoulders back, head high, this is a nonverbal statement that says, I am not to be fucked with and don't try me, which is a necessary way to carry yourself if you come from a tough neighborhood. A white kid's masculine frame is just laughable. Fix your fucking posture, Zach. Nobody's looking to press you. You don't come from a tough neighborhood, and you aren't intimidating anybody. Back in the day, kids got bullied for appearing too weak. Today's kids get bullied for being overly confident. So Zach's tough guy routine only makes him more of a target. Like, what makes this kid think he's so tough? Why is he mean-mugging people in his fucking khakis like he's looking for a fight? If you like fighting, and you like fucking with people, that's the first dude you're gonna want to kick the shit out of. I have zero tolerance for the fuckboy persona, the attitude of a wannabe hard white kid from a relatively safe neighborhood, and I have even less patience for any social event where young, ignorant white kids are getting drunk. White people and alcohol make for an absolutely humiliating mix. Do any of them believe in just having a few drinks and being social? Why does any event that involves alcohol have to turn into some outrageous scene? As if you can't have a good time unless this turns into an episode of Jackass. I like going to parties, but as soon as some arrogant white frat boy kid is 10 beers in, shirtless, flexing, yelling, and now wearing sunglasses at 11:30 at night, dancing on tabletops and shit as a reflection of what a crazy fun time this is, I gotta get the fuck out of there. If you're a white girl who will actually sleep with a guy who conducts himself like this, then don't complain about fuckboys, because you're part of the problem. You're encouraging fuckboy antics. Maybe there's some correlation between this kind of shit and the fact that white girls tend to have the smelliest vaginas. At least in my experience. Of course, a white girl will flip if you comment on it. Like, nobody else has ever said that. Brad doesn't mind the smell. Yeah, well, look how Brad's fucking behaving right now. It doesn't seem like Brad gives a shit about anything. He just smashed a beer can on his forehead and threw up in somebody's hat. These guys behave like this in front of girls and then wonder why it's only a matter of time before these white girls start exclusively dating black guys. Well, it's not rocket science while you're over at the beer pong table like, ugh, get some! If there's a black guy at the party, he's kicking back with his drink, relaxing, watching you make a fool of yourself, and eyeing the white girl you came with, who's gotta be close to her breaking point from tolerating this kind of retarded shit for so long. Yes, sir. Okay, 98.6 The Bore. That's 3.5 hours of uninterrupted, boring shit every morning at 9, followed by the same classic rock songs you've been hearing for the past 35 years on repeat.
Good morning.
At the bottom of the hour is your chance to win Jefferson Starship tickets. The trivia question is, what is something that causes brain damage faster than repeatedly beating yourself in the head with a large object? And the answer is not listening to this station every day. Okay, we're proud to announce that our program director is now allowing us to play 2 songs from each of your favorite bands, but no more than 2. So we've got Motley Crue coming up in a little bit, and for as long as this station lasts, we'll be playing Girls, 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 and Dr. Feelgood. But that's it. If you want some variety, go buy one of the records. Tom is on the line with us this morning. He's not famous or known for anything. He just lives around here. Tom, are you there?
Yes, Kevin. Long-time listener, and thank you for having me on. The issue my wife and I find is that the sanitation department always takes our garbage, but does not always take the recycling. And this is something that was of great concern to my wife and I.
That's something I'd be nervous about too, Tom, because taking the garbage without the recycling, it's incomplete.
That's exactly right, Kevin. The city needs to be more conscious of things like this, because if not, what kind of society are we going to have in 10, 20 years?
You know, I agree with you, Tom, 100%, because we have to think about the kids and what's going to happen with their garbage.
Yes, that's the point I'm hoping to get across to city officials. Before I go, I'd like to request a song.
Sure.
Well, I'm a big Rush fan, and I was wondering if I could hear Red Barchetta.
Oh, sorry, Tom. That's either going to have to be Working Man or Subdivisions.
How about something off Grace Under Pressure?
Not on my watch. Thanks for the call, Tom. You know, we have a lot of fun down here at the office. Every first Friday of the month is Silly Hat Day at the office, and I think our program director, Jim, might have had the silliest hat this past Friday.
Yeah, he did have a funny hat.
A new study suggests 38% of people who own a cat secretly want a dog.
Now, I have a dog and a cat.
You know, we invited AC/DC on the show to come talk about the new album, but they have standards. So next week in studio, we're going to be joined by Pat Benatar's neighbor, and he's going to be telling us about, you know, what that's like.
Wow, are they good friends?
No, he just lives next door.
Oh.
But maybe they see each other when they go to get the paper in the morning or something. And well, anyway, that's the best we could do for a guest. Okay, if you're old enough to remember the feud between Vince Neil and Axl Rose, they're still at it all these years later, this time competing to see who can get the fattest. If you're boring as fuck, we got more boring shit on the way. It's 98.6 The Bore. Here's Cheap Trick. I have never in my entire life wanted to be a father. I knew that since I was a kid, and though people always assure me that when I meet the right girl, naturally I'll change my mind, I'm not so sure about that. My mindset is still the same as it's always been. At one point, I almost did become a father, and that was such a horrific situation, I'd perform a fucking vasectomy on myself before I ever go through something like that again. It was stressful, it was traumatic, and it was sad. For the first time ever, I had to envision myself as a father and a husband-like figure to the woman who almost had my child. And that was a pleasant thought when you only think of the positive possibilities. I admire the Savos greatly. I wear my name with a lot of pride, and I have a minor obsession with legacy. The idea of me being next in line to extend the family began to weigh on me, and the notion of having a little family of my own was cute to visualize. I'd have a lot of love to give to a child, but my fantasies were of course rooted in a perfect world. This is reality, where I'm all too aware of how fucked up this world actually is. I've always felt that if you aren't 1,000% certain you can give a child a good life, you shouldn't have children. And let's be honest, how many parents are complete fucking failures? Take me and my almost baby mama. Her parents raised her in chaos, my parents raised me in chaos. Our role models and examples for what being a parent is all about are people who were able to take a family dynamic and completely turn it on its ass. We got all our negative traits from our parents, we watched them do stupid shit, and like anyone else, a lot of issues we still struggle with as adults stem from our upbringing. But I'm sure her and I will do a bang-up job as parents. Looking back, I don't think I'd trust a single girl I've ever loved to be the mother of my kid. Sharing a child with someone is a beautiful thing nonetheless, but this is me we're talking about, and by now you should know how my mind works. One girl would have sheltered the kid, I think to the extent that the kid would be fucked when he actually had to interact with the outside world. And like most males, we're going to assume my kid would be a boy, so I'm going to say he, referring to the idea of my hypothetical child. One girl would have made my kid a social justice warrior and had him fighting against ideology he barely understood. And then the girl I almost had my kid with was a little reckless, very jealous, and I think might have been a little too lenient with my kid, aside from potentially starting all kinds of shit with me, so our kid, like many others, grows up thinking chaos is normal, and that's what love is all about. When people say it's all about meeting the right girl, I'm thrown by the idea of wanting to reproduce simply because of the affection I feel for a woman. Why can't I just enjoy her? I have to want to create a human with her also? And speaking of having kids for the wrong reasons, I'd think wanting to make a person that looks like a mixture of you and the woman you love for the sake of how cute that would be should be number one on the list. I get it, the kid might have your lips and my ears. If it's a boy, he might lift weights like me, and if it's a girl, she might like to dance like you. You figure you're both so good looking, the kid will be good looking, forgetting that one of your grandparents is ugly as shit and genetics work in mysterious ways. If you actually love the person you're making love to, I understand the metaphor of a child being created from love. That has to be a little different than a child being created from a reenactment of something you saw in 50 Shades of Grey, but still, I don't feel you should bring a child into this world simply because you love each other. And you definitely shouldn't bring a child into the world simply because you think you're both so good-looking that fusing your genetics will make a good-looking person that looks like the both of you. During these conversations, the idea of your child growing up to be a complete menace to society never comes into question. What if our kid grows up to become a drug addict who robs liquor stores for dope money? What are we going to say? At least he looks like us? At least he's so good-looking? Now someone who looks like us is on the 12 o'clock news. And who are the parents? Where were they when this kid was out causing all this shit? Are you prepared to answer that question? Nobody thinks about how they plan on preventing shit like that when they're laid up in bed making love. For as carefree as I am, I always knew being a father would completely rob me of my peace and make me a round-the-clock nervous wreck. How do we raise a kid that's disciplined, hardworking, with high self-esteem, who feels love, peace, is prepared for the world, and how the living fuck do we prevent the kid from doing all the stupid shit we did? Is that possible? Being overprotective makes the kid want to do the opposite of whatever you tell him not to do, but being too lenient might give you the same result. Being a hard ass of a father who's strict and disciplinary always seems to develop strong people, but now they call that child abuse. Can you beat your kids in a manner that toughens them up, or will they grow up all fucked up because dad used to beat me? Generally, it seems that children don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see their parents do. And one way or another, we've all made the same mistakes our parents made, which is why it's crucial that your relationship sort of take a back seat to what's best for the child. So if all you want to do is travel and have sex, how about add in some birth control to that equation and just keep doing that? Because once a kid's born, hey mama, I love you, but I gotta make sure this kid doesn't grow up to be a fucking loser. But most parents still juggle the issues in their relationship with the responsibilities of being a parent. Do we spend enough time together? Do we still desire each other? When's the last time you brought me flowers? When's the last time we made love? When's the last time you met a person who doesn't have emotional trauma from their childhood? Go masturbate and buy yourself flowers. I gotta make sure this kid doesn't grow up to be a frequent crack cocaine user. This is how I think I'd be as a father. I'd be all about this kid and making sure the kid grows up properly. But you can't just be all about the kid. You have to be all about the family, because kids with two parents in the home grow up better than kids from single-parent homes, and now you have the job of keeping a woman happy and raising up the kid good, because if she's not happy, she leaves with the kid, then she starts fucking someone else, which further confuses the kid, and these are all the reasons I can't be a dad. What if I had a daughter? What if I had a daughter? I'd have to raise this girl to be a trained fighter and weapons specialist so nobody tries to take advantage of her. I'd also have to give her enough love to see to it that she doesn't seek the love I never gave her from some asshole. What are the chances I'd have a child with a woman who would support all these decisions? I don't need a woman trying to let my daughter sign up for cheerleading while I'm trying to make her into the female version of Rambo so she'll be safe in this world of predators and rapists. The real kicker is, as a parent, the law prevents you from defending your children. So if someone rapes your daughter and you find the guy who did it and beat him to a bloody pulp, there's no guarantee the rapist will serve time, but you're guaranteed to serve time for beating the shit out of the rapist. And on top of that, not only is the damage done being that you weren't really able to protect your daughter, you just avenged her, but now you're behind bars where you no longer have the ability to protect her. I really feel in my heart parents should be exempt from repercussions should they need to defend their children in situations like this, and it's a real shame they aren't. Here's another horribly uncomfortable classic. 9 times out of 10, someone who tells me they've been molested as a kid say their uncle molested them. So then I have to ask, does nobody notice their brother's a little fucking weird before they have kids? Or do more people need to assess where their brother seems to be in life before they have kids and invite their brother over to family gatherings? This shit makes me so uncomfortable, but I can't help but question how it all comes about. And this might seem as off the wall and out of the ordinary as most things I say, but I think these are things everyone should think about before they have kids. A lot of people would tell me I'm overthinking it, it's not that complicated, and that I have a twisted perception of love, relationships, and parenthood. Yet this world is packed to the brim with people who don't stand a chance in this life because their parents failed to give them a decent upbringing. That's no joking matter to me, and I refuse to fail an innocent child the same way. The fucked up thing about being human is we really are just a highly advanced animal, so sex and reproduction is a very animalistic thing. I have all these concerns about how I would perform as a father and what kind of results it would have, so consciously I would rather never have to find out. Subconsciously, I'm wired for reproduction. That's why I love women, and that's why I love fucking. It's not my own brilliant misogynistic idea to want to sleep with women, and I've had the side of myself that wants a family unlocked for the first time. It's in me. At the time I'm recording this, I should have a 2-week-old baby. That'll forever sadden me. I'll forever love the girl who almost became the mother of my kid, even if she wasn't the right one for me, and I'll forever envision that alternate reality where I have a family. But back to my current reality, where I don't have a woman or a child distracting me from my work, and I'm only responsible for myself, I'm still eagerly awaiting the time where I become eligible for a vasectomy. I turn 25 this year, and you have to be 30 to get one. We have a couple years to go. Let's see if I make it there without kids. People who don't believe in the afterlife really irritate me. I don't know if I necessarily believe in an afterlife myself, but I still can't help but get a little unsettled whenever one of my atheist friends feels the need to inform people at a fucking social event that nothing happens when we die. Now, usually this is to help illustrate a point on how we should embrace the present moment or cherish the life we have, but it's depressing, and I also find it to be a little arrogant. People hate know-it-alls, and people hate when someone speaks on a subject that they aren't fully educated on. Yet this motherfucker has just announced to the entire room that he has unraveled the mystery of life and death, and he knows what happens when we die. A lot of times, these folks do have a bit of snippiness in the way they say it. Like, I'm not a brainwashed follower of religion. I'm not naive. I don't kid myself. I only deal in facts. And facts are facts. When we die, that's it. Well, congratulations, first of all, on your brilliant understanding, but that's a horribly uncomfortable thought, and you're killing my fucking buzz. I get it. If nothing happens when we die, then this is really the only life we have. So enjoy the present moment. Ah, yes, yeah, I was enjoying the moment till you joined my conversation with this morbid shit. We're all very impressed by your intellectual and philosophical realism, and your beanie hat and gauges are very stylish. Now leave me the fuck alone with this shit. Correct me if times have changed and I missed the part where mainstream science has now claimed to assume full understanding of all life's mysteries, but I always thought nobody really entirely knew what life is, and that certainly nobody knew for a fact that there is or is not an afterlife. It's still impossible for anyone to know for a fact how the universe really began, but over time, the Big Bang Theory has just become the Big Bang, and the theory of evolution has just become evolution. I've had people tell me I should believe in the Big Bang Theory. Why? Who is it harming if I don't? I don't even think that'd be harming myself. But it could make me appear uneducated, because this is taught in school, and see, this is where education and belief meet, becoming interconnected like a snake deep-throating its own ass. Now the mysteries of the universe, life, and death are up for the same style debate among intellectuals as abortion, race relations, and everything else we argue about. Whoever makes the best case deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, and whoever sounds less educated or less practical is a moronic believer who probably failed school. The issue I find with intellectuals is they seem to gauge smart thinking based on what other intellectuals believe. So if you have your own ideas that don't seem to meet most intellectual criteria for what's practical to believe, you gotta change your beliefs, because you don't want to seem like a dumbass now. I'm not religious, and I don't think I'm that naive. Like I said, I don't necessarily believe in the afterlife, but by my own logic, I'd find it hard to believe that there is no explanation for life and that I am a conscious being experiencing a tremendous universe for a limited amount of time for no reason, just so I can dip in and out of existence and nothing whatsoever happens afterwards. Can we all have our individual ideas but agree that nobody really knows? No, we can't, because the morbid intellectuals know, and it's part of the broad range of understandings that make up the giant pedestal they stand on. Well, here's a few factual mysteries. Science still cannot explain why we dream, and they still cannot explain what consciousness is or where it's located in the brain. We can make our assumptions, but nobody knows for a fact, which is okay. We're not supposed to know every goddamn thing about existence, and you're not a dummy if you don't. You can pretend to, because it makes you appear more educated than the next man, but that also makes you a jackass. Intellectual atheists love to make profound statements like, when you look at how small we are in comparison to this giant universe, you realize we don't matter. We don't matter to the universe. It's so much bigger than us. Okay, we as people on this planet don't matter because we're not as big as the universe. We're not supposed to be as big as the fucking universe. Isn't this just boiling down value and importance to size? So how big do I have to be to matter? Do I have to be the size of a planet, the size of one half of the universe? Would we matter if we were giant beings like as big as King Kong or Godzilla? Would we matter then? People think they're so brilliant. Like, isn't that a profound thought? No, what the fuck are you talking about? All I heard was size matters, like dick size. And think of the importance we lend to dick size. Think of the importance we lend to size in the first place. Is that intellectual thinking? The bigger the better? Big dicks, big titties, big asses. Everyone wants a big screen TV to go in their big living room and their big garage that holds their big car, a bigger iPhone. Every woman wants a big tall man. And even though war, genocide, slavery, and all the horrific shit that's happened on this tiny planet has affected generations of human life, remember, it all happened on a relatively small planet compared to the size of the universe, so none of it really matters. If my mother gets hit by a car tomorrow and dies on impact, I'll try to keep in mind that it doesn't really matter given the size of the universe in comparison to this tiny isolated incident. It's also funny how most people who think like this are also easily alarmed by politics, Donald Trump tweets, abortion laws, transgender rights, and a plethora of other things that are also very small in comparison to the universe. So knock it the fuck off. I'm tired of human beings thinking they have such a grasp on everything. Can the mysteries of life, death, existence, and the universe be the one area where even the brightest minds accept the mystery and don't claim to have an understanding of it? Just the other day, Joe Rogan was talking about the universe and cited the, I guess, scientific fact and common understanding that the universe is 14 billion years old. Did you know that? Well, everybody knows that. So let me get this straight. Human beings who barely get to spend 100 years on this planet are able to tell us what was going on several billion years before any of us got here? I don't care if it was a genius scientist that came up with this. That's insane to claim you can actually tell me about anything that happened billions of years ago. You ever just smoke a joint, close your eyes, and picture the universe and think of how insane it is that scientists claim they have it all figured out? Yeah, we know how it got here, how long it's been here. Yeah, the whole universe, the same universe that's so much bigger than our tiny solar system and even smaller planet where nothing really matters because of how small it is in comparison to the universe. That's what a college education gets you. Stephen Hawking has also confirmed that there is no afterlife, but of course even he can't resist the urge to throw a little dig at people who do believe in an afterlife. He says there's no afterlife, faith in an afterlife is for people who are scared of the dark. Like, once again, not only is it, as a highly knowledgeable person, I don't see any evidence of an afterlife, it's there is no afterlife, like he's God, the end-all be-all on the subject. It doesn't exist, and if you think it exists, you're probably a little bitch on top of it. You can't argue with these people. You can't cite interesting near-death experience reports. You can't bring up deja vu, precognitive dreams, astral projection. Like, there is a mysterious, bizarre side of life, and there are things people experience with no explanation for how it's possible. But all those people were either tweaking or lying, plain and simple. Or we chalk it up to coincidence. Shit happens. Well, whatever. I'll listen to a tweaker tell me a story about the time he saw a ghost before I'll listen to some arrogant cocksucker boasting about the non-existence of an afterlife and patting himself on the back for being so realistic about it. And I hope there is an afterlife, just for the slight chance that some annoying atheist might move into a house haunted by a demonic fucking spirit that'll feed on the soul of his bitch. Like, honey, can you believe the property value on this house? And it's in such a great neighborhood, too. I can't believe it's been on the market so long. While the realtor's like, yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, here you go, cocksucker. Take this off my fucking hands. You notice you had no trouble getting approved for a mortgage even though your credit's fucking horrific, but like most of life's great mysteries, there's no reason for it. Enjoy the new house. I'm beginning to notice a trend of women expressing online how they prefer a man who stays home and plays video games all day and night over a man who goes out often. This could be coupled with memes that depict a woman with her legs wrapped around a man who's smoking a blunt and playing Xbox, along with a caption that reads, "Get you a relationship like this." I've seen Facebook statuses by women encouraging other women not to get on their man's case about playing video games all day, and rather appreciate that you have a man who rather sit around playing Xbox than go out with his boys, because Lord knows if he goes out socializing with his boys, they might bump into some women. So what I get from this is people have become so fearful of being cheated on, they rather have someone who's lazy and complacent, who can often be found in front of the television with a blunt for extended periods of time, than a productive person who has a social life, because at least that's better than them being out of your sight where they could possibly be fucking someone. The reason I get such a kick out of this is because these women are seeking complacency off the bat. Complacency, the second relationship killer right behind cheating. So you've secured a man who's way too busy trying to beat a level of Assassin's Creed to cheat on you, like men aren't crafty enough to do both, but I'll let it rock. And now you've invited a man to feel comfortable in a complacent situation. You present yourself as a woman who's easy to please, not too demanding. I don't care what we do. I don't care what we eat. Damn, you've already beaten GTA? Well, there's like fucking 8 of them, so that should keep you away from other women. You've got quite a few games to beat. Should we roll another blunt? Why not? It's only the 9th blunt today. Like, this is all good and well for a short period of time, but women like to pretend they're not as naturally complex as they are. It takes a variety of things to maintain a woman's interest, and here's a situation with no variety. So today she's thrilled to have a gamer who wants to game more than he wants to cheat, but 4 months down the road, she'll be so sick of watching this motherfucker sit around and play games, she'll wish he was out cheating. At least it would get him out from in front of the television, and he'd be doing something with his day. Usually, the most attractive people are high performance, ambitious, and have a lot going for themselves. You don't get to see them all the time, so you have some time to miss them. You have to make the time you do spend together count, and you have a lot to talk about when you see each other because there's so much going on. There's a risk associated with high value people, though. They're sought after, and they have options. But if they chose you, then you beat out the competition. Though, what if he fucks someone else? What if he's talking to someone else? You know, that's a risk you take when you get involved with someone. I don't really know if there's such a thing as preventative maintenance in terms of trying to formulate a situation where it's less likely you'll be cheated on, other than have standards for yourself and have standards for your partner. I'm seeing a girl right now who's very attractive. Not only does she have a great figure and a pretty face, but she's flashy and stylish. You can't miss her. On top of that, she works in a shopping mall. I'd be kidding myself if I were to assume she doesn't get hit on often and doesn't always have the opportunity to sleep with someone else if she wanted to. But if I were to prefer she didn't have a social life and didn't leave the house often so she wouldn't have sexual opportunity, that wouldn't only mean I'm insecure, it would mean I'm crazy. As it is, we haven't been doing a whole lot since we've been seeing each other. I've been rewatching all the Batman movies, so we've been having sex and watching Batman. Now that's all good and well for now, and she's content because it's a relatively new situation. But guess what? If that's all we do for the next 2 months, this girl's gonna go from liking me to being like, you know, the only thing I hate more than you is fucking Batman. Then she might start sleeping with a guy who prefers Superman. I follow the Chris Rock philosophy. The only thing you should be doing in a relationship is fucking and going places. Well, we've been fucking. Now we gotta start going places before this thing turns sideways. Shit gets old real quick, and people have a desire for variety. People want to do different shit. Honestly, whether you desire commitment or not, it's bad enough to be fucking the same person for an extended period of time anyway. For real, you've done every position, you know each other's bodies, the initial excitement is gone, and now it's the same old shit. You really want to bore this woman to death on top of it? And now, are we going to demonize men who have social lives because they could be at home playing video games where there's less opportunity to cheat like good little boys? Hashtag get you a man like that. Yeah, hashtag have fun being right up each other's ass, enjoy playing video games, smoking blunts, and fucking till the shit gets old and you both end up wanting to fuck other people. You can set your watch or mark the calendar right down to the moment complacency takes its course and kills the desire you have for each other. My sometimes ridiculous desire for things that keep life creative and interesting always made me feel like a madman. Like, why can't I be content with the simple things in life like everyone else? Why can't I have a decent job, a good woman, a good breakfast in the morning, let life take its course and shut the fuck up? Because that's not what life is all about. I believe there's a few keys to having a good life. Finding your passion, accepting the challenges that come with pursuing that passion, finding the creativity in this magnificent mystery of an existence, and keeping everyone involved to share it together. Now, maybe everyone doesn't aspire to make movies, do web videos, make mixtapes, or audiobooks, but everyone desires to do more with their life than work and sleep. Maybe most aren't as vocal about it, and most don't give in to the insane amount of frustration that can come with living a life of quiet desperation. Certainly, I'm a little crazy, and like Tupac said in Juice, I don't give a fuck. Being a little crazy and a little outside the norm in the way I think has allowed me to take on great challenges. Everything I pursue is beyond my means, but I'm crazy enough to find a way to get it done, sometimes by destroying my finances, sometimes by destroying my body. In the end, maybe none of my movies ever get sold. Maybe none of my web videos go any more viral than they already have, and maybe nobody listens to my music. Maybe this audiobook won't even be listened to. But the journey of pursuing all these things has beaten the living fuck out of sitting around wondering what the outcome would have been without giving it a shot. Life gets fucking boring, and anyone claiming to be content with boring, routine shit is fucking lying. Anyone who claims their mind doesn't take them into some bizarre places from time to time is definitely lying. And anyone keeping all these thoughts and feelings to themselves in order to adapt to the horrific norm of society is doing themselves a disservice. It ain't like life comes often, so do what you can to keep it interesting and try to have fun. I'm Kevin Savo, and if you made it with me through this entire book, that's my time. If anything I've said offended you, these are simply my own thoughts, and thought crimes are non-violent crimes.